Hello, Ramley and other NFL family. Payo Time here. Feel free to like and subscribe, all that jazz. Today, I am thrilled to have a podcast slash video with Jake Ellenbogen, and we'll be welcoming him into the show. Jake has one of the largest subscriber bases on the YouTube platform of any Rams content creator. He has great analysis in a lot of his videos. He's a vital part of the Believe podcast with Cameron Lynch, and he also is a host on the Downtown Rams podcast and is a writer for the Downtown Rams blog post as well. In today's video, we will be talking about the state of the Rams content creators on YouTube. We will also be giving our thoughts on the 2022 season, the high and lows of it, and of course we'll be looking ahead to this offseason to what can the Rams do to help get back to Super Bowl contention form. Thanks so much for joining. Feel free to like. There will be timestamps in the description below of the various aspects of our dialogue today, but appreciate each and every one of you tuning on in. All right, we are recording. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And I'm very pleased to welcome the one, the only, you might call him the Mr. Beast of Rams content, Jake Ellenbogen in the house. Jake, how's it going?
Well, Payo, thank you so much for reaching out. It's going. There's a lot of work to be done. This is the busy part of, this is probably the busiest time of year for me, and that's saying a lot since, you have the whole regular season and everything. But man, the Mr. Beast of this space is that's quite the compliment. I'm a big fan of what he does. He's honestly the best, I think, on YouTube, if we're being real. So that is pretty lofty, expectations to now hold myself to. But, nonetheless, I really appreciate you, looking at me in that light.
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, I've learned a lot from watching your channel, and for anyone who doesn't know, I'm trying to remember. I was under 100 subscribers, and I was just posting my little reaction videos here and there, and then you in a live stream, you actually looked up my channel. It was before I had a good logo or anything like that, and you were like, "Hey man, keep going, feel free to reach out." And so yeah, I always appreciated that, in the early days of my channel, and just honestly just learning to be consistent in and actually look at producing Rams content as an art, producing it with as much quality as you can, and having a realistic workflow and things like that. So those are just a few things that I've learned from kind of watching you do it, and I very much respect what you do, and I enjoy your content. So I'm glad you're coming on.
Yeah, no, Payo, I really appreciate that. That's actually something that I remember very vividly. I remember you kind of, I wouldn't say you were crapping on your content or whatnot, but you're like, yeah, I'm not as big as you are. And I'm like, well, there's, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think, the biggest thing that I find, and I come across people just in my everyday life that, maybe they say, oh, I'd love to be able to do what you do. But they're afraid to put themselves out there. And here's a secret that people don't know about me. I am deathly afraid of speaking in public. I can't do it. My face will turn blood red. I just honestly, I have severe anxiety speaking in public. I get shaky. I get really nervous. But speaking in front of a camera, even though it's to 500 to 1,000 people, whether be a big live stream or what have you, it doesn't mean that I wasn't nervous at the start, but I'm not nervous anymore. And I think the big thing is Sean Cannell of Think Media always says, you just got to hit record. You know, and I think when you're able to do that, you never know what's going to come out of it, but you always have to start somewhere, and that's the bar that's being set. So no matter how low that bar is, it has to happen. You can look at my other videos, and I've done significant things to change not only my appearance, getting my teeth more straightened and everything, because I had the biggest gap ever looking back. on my first videos. Not even talking the ones on YouTube, the ones that are on Facebook, which is crazy. But get my teeth straightened and things like that to make myself more comfortable. And then just fixing my setup. Doing a lot of research, figuring out lighting, figuring out backdrops and the rule of thirds and things like that. So I just think over time, as long as you set that bar, you can really accomplish whatever you want to accomplish.
Absolutely, absolutely, and for those watching or listening to this, we are going to talk a little bit about kind of being a Rams content creator or being a football YouTuber a little bit. Then we will talk about the Rams a little bit later on. But Jake, I'm going to start with this. So, like you, I've had many people over the past year say like, "Oh, I would love to do what you do," or like, "Oh, that's so cool that you can like have a YouTube channel that's monetized," which people don't actually realize getting monetized really doesn't bring in that much money at first, like off ad revenue. But and they go on and they tell me like, "Oh man, I wish I could do that." It's like the first thing I say to them is like, "You can do that. You literally can. You do like because the world we live in." You do not, like you said, you do not have to be an expert. You can do this. You can put in the time to learn how to hit record on a camera, figure out some sort of audio of some kind, and even if it's not like great quality at first, have a starting point and continue to build it, right? And I look at kind of other teams in the NFL, and you look at there's tons of Jets content creators. There's tons of the amount of 49ers content creators, the amount of Packers or the Chiefs or like all of these teams have just a lot of consistent content creators that all have a sizable following, not necessarily millions of subscribers, but like a decent following. And then you look at the Rams, and there are Rams content creators like myself and like you that are out there. So sometimes it's not always the most consistent, but like that's okay because that's something I found consistency is something you have to learn when you're doing this. And
Big time.
I think my encouragement is just if you're out there thinking of starting a YouTube channel about the Rams, do it because I think this team has a lot of potential on the platform. The Rams official YouTube channel just crossed 100,000 subscribers, I think like 2 weeks ago. And yeah, I would just love to know, like, what are your thoughts on, doing Rams content on YouTube as a whole? I know you've at times shifted from doing like, Rams content, but like Jets content and some, you have your draft content, which is fantastic and other aspects of it. But what's your thoughts on Rams content as a whole on the platform?
Yeah, I mean, right now I feel like if you were ever looking for a time to get into Rams content, it would be now because when you look at the Steelers and you look at the Patriots and what have you, like the peak of that when YouTube was starting to like take off for sports content creators and actually starting to focus on even more long form content, podcasts, like interested in that, right? That was around the time that those teams were good. They already had fan bases and they weren't split apart due to a move. And I think what we oftentimes forget is the Rams moved from St. Louis, but think about what that left the Rams in terms of fan base.
Mm-hmm.
You now have a new fan base in LA. You have your fans like you and I, you in Canada, me in New York, but I mean, that's a lot of people to just up and leave in St. Louis. And not every one of them stuck by the Rams after that. There were people that were rooting for the Patriots in that Super Bowl in 2018 to 2019 season. So, I think it's a matter of repairing that by, you fix it, right? You find more people. And so exactly what you mentioned, hitting 100,000 not only guarantees you a nice little plaque from YouTube, but it also guarantees you the fact that you may not reach all those 100,000 people. And what I mean by reach is you may not get them all on your team. You may not get them all to subscribe, but The 100,000 is the threshold now, you
Mhm.
know? And then as they continue to grow, that threshold continues to grow. And that is the ceiling essentially for what you can do. Because anybody that's looking for Rams content on YouTube has probably already subscribed to the Rams. That's just the way it is. Um, but at the same time, you know, if you are interested in doing more you Ram centric, kind of like me, but also want to, you know, test the waters on just the NFL in general, or, you know, even look at another team that's in the AFC, like I'm doing with the Jets, I mean, then, you know, I think YouTube does give you that opportunity. It's a little bit more difficult, and you can see it all over my channel. I've really tried to push for it. And, you know, I think when you are established in a fan base, and you have just that resume that's online, people Google you and you're attached to one team, it makes it harder for the other fan bases to be involved in what you have to say. And so, you know, I would just say that if you're trying to get into, you know, a particular fan base, whether it be the Rams or what have you, now's the time to do it. It's never been easier to make content. It's not just long form. It's not just, you know, the regular videos like, you know, 10, 20 minutes or whatever. It's also the short form. And it's actually really easy for people to get into it now. You don't have to have the best camera in the world. Although I do recommend having a good camera because it stands out when people are looking at small creators and all of a sudden you pop up with, you know, a nice little, you know, Ace 6400 or whatever Sony like I have, like it's going to clearly pop and people are going to see that. Same thing with the microphone, you know, you don't want to sound like you're talking out of a tin can, you know,
Mhm.
because, you know, if you get somebody to click on your video, maybe you don't have the best video quality, but people are listening and like, okay, this is really good. They're probably listening because your microphone's pretty good, you know, and it's a lot easier to keep that going. And there are also so many people that use YouTube now on TV as like a TV show, right? And I didn't realize that, but like my live streams, people literally put on their big screen TV. They'll send me like DMs on Instagram, and be like, "Oh, I'm watching you on TV right now," and it's kind of surreal, right? But that's just the way the times are. That's how things have changed. And so you just have to prepare for that because think about this, when somebody blows up your video onto their giant 70-inch television, do you want it to be in 4K, do you want it to be in 1080, or do you want it to be in 480, you know, coming from a webcam that's going to look more blocky, and then it's going to be even more blocky when it's, you know, stretched out.
Yeah.
So there are just some things to consider, but I think when you have just these phones, these are incredible devices, this camera's insane. You know, I don't even use this for any of my content creation. I record everything with my camera. But if you're one of those people that's trying to get into the space, you know, take a little bit out of other people's playbooks. I mean, just look at like Scooter Magruder, right? Like more of a comedy focus, right?
Mhm.
If you don't feel like you can provide something, but you still want to provide it, find ways to do it, right? I mean, like for me, football analysis has always been my thing. I know the personnel really well. I know guys, you know, position wise. I know who's good, who's bad, who's, you know, all that. But I've never been a comedy NFL guy. I've tried that. I've dipped my toe into it, but I'm not a Tom Grossi, so to speak.
Yeah.
But if you are and you want to stay connected to the NFL, there you go. And so that's my thing, is that I think there are multiple avenues that you can go where, hey, I want to get involved in this, but I don't know if I'm cut out for this. Not always true. You can find different layers, and sometimes you can find yourself into a certain niche, and then that niche blows up. Just look at, you know, guys like Bangle on YouTube that started out. They're just like a Madden channel, right? It's
Yeah.
just a gamer, and he planted the seed so early on with YouTube that he has grown to the point where he can do whatever he wants, and he's going to get a ton of views on it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that like some people think like when you start a YouTube channel, you have to go in with the mindset of like, oh, like I have to be, you know, 100,000 subscribers or nothing, right? Like
Yeah.
there is a like growth and process that can, and some people you do see like an escalated exponential growth relatively quickly, which I know you've experienced at times, and other times like, you know, I'll be honest, you know, some weeks for me, it's just like, okay, like 5 new subscribers this week. That's awesome. Like, cool. and you just take what it is. And, I think that there's kind of this misconception that when you go into YouTube, your goal has to be, oh, I want to make this my full-time job. That can be a goal, absolutely. And I am so amazed because like, I think before you were doing content full-time, weren't you like working at like a retail store or something like that?
So I so I worked at a call center, like window shades and
Yeah,
whatnot. And
I've been there. Yeah.
I feel like without completely, I don't want to say anything too bad about it. I really liked the people I worked with, but I just knew it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
And the real thing that really kind of got me to quit was one day in particular. I quit way later on, but this is the moment when I was like, I need to quit.
I love these stories.
Is when I go on lunch break and I'm interviewing Kurt Warner with Alexis on my channel, for Downtown Rams. And then I get off lunch break and this guy's just cursing me out and saying how I'm a loser and all that. And he's been in the business for 35 years. And I'm like, basically just sitting there like, if I Googled you, would you come up? Probably not. But if you Google me, I come up like all over the place. And that's not me like tooting my own horn. That's just like the facts. And so, I realized at that moment, I was like, I can't go on lunch breaks, interview Kurt Warner on the phone and get on the phone and be yelled at 30 minutes later about window shades. It's just not, I'm meant for more than this. And so, I eventually, with the help of my late grandfather, I was pushed to do it. I really don't believe in quitting. I believe in, giving 2 weeks and, being there for them. But I couldn't do it any longer. I literally told my boss, as much as I loved my boss, I told her I could not work another minute here. And, from that point on, I've really just put my best foot forward and just, going all out on this content. And what it's allowed me to do is, funny enough, I didn't have, I quit that job. I didn't get another full-time job or anything like that since. So that means that whole year where the Rams were going to the Super Bowl and everything, I was able to be on top of everything. Like when Odell dropped, like I know you probably saw it too, Payo.
Yeah.
When the Odell news dropped, I had a live stream out the second that dropped.
Yeah.
When Von Miller got traded, I had a live stream out 5 seconds after the Von Miller trade got announced. Like, and that's something that, if you're going for that, if you're going for the full time, if this is part of your career or you're doing it to potentially branch off into another career, which is certainly possible, then I think it's worth it, but it's an insane risk, and I mean, it doesn't always, it's not always a guarantee, money wise, like you've mentioned. YouTube doesn't pay you as much as some people would think.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, you've received donations from people as well, from our great viewers, and that really goes a long way. But you can't just bank on it. So, that's the big thing there. And then, getting those communications and those, building those relationships with sponsors and what have you, is what kind of keeps you doing this. And so, right now I'm just kind of all over the map. I have my YouTube channel, which I do the Believe in Rams podcast, with Cam Lynch, former Rams linebacker. I do Downtown Rams with Alexis. I'm doing NFL draft content, more on the short side of things, because I think it's easier to kind of digest for just the any day viewer.
Yep.
But I'm also doing Rams content. I dipped my toe a little bit into the NBA, doing Jets content. Alexis and I are dropping an NFL show called A Football Show.
Yeah, I saw that. That'll be cool.
So we're really looking forward to that. We'll see where that takes us. And then I have some other things working on in the background that, I'll have more of an idea later on. But, just constantly as a content creator, I'm just constantly trying to put stuff out there and really my goal is to just keep doing this full time. And if times get tough, and they're going to, because that's just the way it is, during the off season, you could say the draft season's the busiest of the year, but that's not the time you bring in the most money, so to speak. So when times do get tough, I look at getting another gig, but staying in this industry, because I just never want to work at a place that's going to make me feel that crappy ever
Totally.
again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm so thankful, Jake, that you're not working at that call center anymore, that you're doing what you're doing. And again, I just want to encourage anyone out there that's listening or watching this. If going full time is a goal of you, definitely, that look into what it takes to do that. And I'm very much of the mindset where, like, my channel is drastically different than what Jake's channel is, and I have no intentions of going full time on YouTube. I do have a job that, like, I enjoy, and it allows me to produce a, what I say, sustainable amount of content. But like, I view my channel as very much a monetized hobby, is what I tell people. And so if you're out there watching that, and that's kind of something that you could see doing, there's nothing wrong with that either. And
No.
learning, like, using your phone to record some of your thoughts on the Rams, or football on your way to work, or doing something like that. And like, there is market for it. You might not get the same growth and different opportunities like what you're getting, Jake, but there's definitely opportunities for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really as simple as this. You're going to get whatever you put in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is. And so, especially if you create like a nice community like yourself, like, you're a friendly guy, and you're easy to talk to, and you're just you're cool to talk with. And
Thank you.
so you're going to get more people that reflect that. And so that's the beauty of it. You kind of create your own fan base, if you will. And so, what I find is that if you're creating something, you're putting something out there that doesn't already exist. That to me is powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's full time, part time, you're doing a one off video, that goes a long way.
Yeah.
And just think about it in terms of this. I never realized how important my channel was, but like, I get reached out to all the time, like, hey man, my mental health is crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I look forward, anytime you go live, like, I look forward to that.
Yeah.
And then the person, because I've been open about my mental health as well, my depression, anxiety, all that. And it's actually kind of funny, because not only are people enjoying it as like a kind of a way to kick back, relax, and kind of escape a little bit, but then they also like how transparent I am about that. So I've been reached out to, like, I think it's just so cool. Like, you and I are going through the same, similar battles, and, you're putting out this content. It kind of shows me that I can, do other things as well. And, I just think the beauty of content is that, now with the way cable's almost meaningless because everything is streaming now, YouTube is kind of taken over as like the de facto. What are we? What's on TV, honey? Oh, I'll just turn on YouTube. And I think just the fact that you can really get any sort of content, whether that be, hey, I have a stomach pain right now, I'm going to look it up on YouTube. Like, what could this mean? Right. Or, hey, I'm trying to find, a certain thing in this game. I'm having a hard time on this level. Let me look it up. Or you just want to be entertained. Like, hey, let's look at some jump scares, or some let's plays, or let's just look at some funny videos.
Mm-hmm.
Or I want to learn. And, it's like, hey, I want to learn about the Lakers. And then there's a bunch of stuff on the Lakers or the Rams or whatever. So, I think that's just the beauty of it, is that when you're creating something, you're putting it out there. It's giving people an opportunity to be entertained, to learn. I mean, that's a powerful thing when you're the one creating something like that.
Absolutely. And I always, something that I learned, it was on a Think Media podcast that they said is like the importance of value-based content, right? And maybe your content doesn't look the most professional, but if it's of value to someone, that's that's one of the greatest things you can do as a content creator is like someone is making you a minor character in their story that day by clicking on your video. And that's something I take to heart for sure.
Yeah, I think media is great. So I like that you mentioned them. I watch a lot of their videos, and that's another thing. Like, just because you've reached this doesn't mean you can't reach this. And
Mm-mm.
so, the way I look at it is I'm always trying to get 1% better every day. And so if I can learn something new, I'm gonna try to do that. And when I have time, yeah, I boot up Think Media. I'll watch Mr. Beast try to pick out different things that he does with his editing. Obviously not him, but his team of editors.
Totally.
And just maybe I'll experiment. And you've seen that with my videos because I am the king at not sticking to one specific thing. My videos always have different. It's always a different thing. I notice. I mean, the only thing that's constant. I'm in the camera. It's the same camera. It's the same lighting. It's the same backdrop, right? And I have the same ending screen, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I have changed up so many different things. I've tried, adding, those things where you take a really interesting, thought-provoking clip from the middle of the video and you make it your hook at the beginning. I've tried all sorts of things, starting without an intro entirely. I've been doing that more. I think that actually, causes more retention,
Mm-hmm.
if you will. I've been messing around with thumbnails for years, just trying to find the perfect formula.
Oh, wait,
And,
bro.
I just think at the end of the day, like, there's so much room for growth, especially on this platform. And, there's so many different things that you can do. It in itself, it's almost a hobby, just creating the content. Like, not even if nobody watched it, it's just fun, trying different things, trying different tags, trying different titles.
Mm-hmm.
I've been using Chat GPT a little bit to kind
Oh,
of,
cool.
like maybe write, so like I've taken notes, like my draft notes, and I've actually written scouting reports with Chat GPT.
Interesting.
And what's cool is I put it into my plagiarism detector because obviously I don't want that. And yeah, it's all good. So, I do stuff like that. Now, and I'm trying to always use the new technology, like what's in, try to keep up with everything. And I gotta say, like the biggest revelation was how important YouTube Shorts is, because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that YouTube is now paying you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that is only getting bigger. And it's YouTube's real opportunity to knock TikTok out. Like, I'm not saying they're going to, but since YouTube believes this, or YouTube is starting to think this, they are going to continue to push, because TikTok creators don't get paid much at all for their TikTok videos. YouTube has the monetization for the regular videos, and now they have monetization for the short form content. And so that's a big thing here. And what ultimately you got to keep in mind is, if YouTube is trying to push this content out, they're pushing out everything that's a YouTube short. And now that we found out recently that YouTube shorts also get you, your regular form content interacted with and recommended, now it's just, you can kind of, play off each other, right? And so, I think that's the beauty of it, is that as long as you keep up with the times essentially and what they're trying to do, the algorithm isn't that hard to crack. And so, I've noticed, obviously, like if I'm putting out short form content about the NFL draft, I'm going to get more NFL draft subscribers. Now I have those people onto my video. If I do the Rams content, I'm still getting about 10 Rams subscribers every time I put out like a Rams short form content clip, And so I think it's a big deal.
Totally. Absolutely. Oh, good words there, everyone. I hope you're taking notes. So, Jake, we talked about the state of Rams YouTube for longer than I thought. That was totally cool. And
Yeah.
we'll close off this segment just saying, if you're out there and you're watching Jake, or you're watching me, or Rams Showcase, or Rams House, or the Ramelia Sports Report, or any other Rams content out there, have a go at it. Put up a video. And see what happens. It's a lot of fun, and it can lead to some really cool opportunities for sure. right, I'm just gonna do that there. And that's just so I can clip it out later. That was great. Okay, well, Jake, let's talk a little bit about the Rams here. The Rams 2022 season, going into it, the expectation was Super Bowl. The expectation, was run it back. There was a lot of hype. I think that if you would have told me, before the season started, that the Rams, wouldn't even make the playoffs, I would have been like, oh, come on, you're just a hater, right? And I don't think anyone was picking that. And obviously, 12 different offensive line combinations, multiple, injuries at key positions, just struggling to score, put up points. I think they ranked dead last in yards total on offense. It was, clearly the worst season in the Sean McVay era, and it's not even close. So I know it's so easy to focus on the negative. It's so easy to focus on it. And I think it's important to explore it. It's important to acknowledge the expectation not being met. But what were your thoughts on this season? Did you have some favorite moments? I know for me, the Broncos game and the Falcons game were two of my favorite moments. I was at the Falcons game, which was really cool, going to SoFi, and then
that's awesome.
The Christmas miracle of destroying the Broncos.
Yeah, there are actually quite a decent amount of favorite moments of mine in a season that was 5-12.
Yeah.
One that really stands out to me is the Baker Mayfield drive.
Yes.
I don't know if how long he'll be a Ram. I don't know if he'll be back. I don't know, but that felt so special. I mean, I was so excited for that. Something about that just felt magical, and it just kind of gave you something to hang on, I guess. But then you look at the Broncos game. That was also kind of magical in a sense as well. The emergence of Cam Akers at the end of the season, getting back to where we thought he could be, but kind of fell off. That was big, And then just like the Kobe Durant game against the Falcons, where he had a sack and an interception, looked really good in that one. Using Ben Skoranek at fullback, that was a lot of fun. The moment they realized that Michael Hoyt could actually play outside linebacker,
Canadian,
a lot of fun.
Just have to always give a shout out to Canadian Rams.
And even to a degree, the Bills game. And here's why. The Bills game was painful, but to force 3 turnovers on Josh Allen, I mean, I don't think they get enough credit for that, because the defense, everyone knows, they think of Ramsey getting burned by Diggs. They think about, the Bills winning 31-10 or whatever. But, the defense played well. The offense just didn't do a damn thing. And so it really hurt. It hurt everything. And so I think that was really just the key of the season, is that the offense let down the defense. And no matter who you talk to, it seems like the majority of Rams fans would disagree, and they'd say, Raheem Morris and the defense and all that. But I mean, they were in every single game going into the fourth quarter, except for the Chargers game, because of that defense. And so that is a reason to be annoyed and be bummed, but it's also a reason for optimism in 2023, because when you have a defense and defense coordinators coming back to coach that defense that, is keeping you in every game.
Yep.
Well, there's a good chance that offense was a fluke last year. A lot of injuries happened, like you mentioned. And I think that's going to be the easiest thing to turn around from an offensive-minded coach's perspective in Sean McVay. So I'm not worried about it. I'm really not. I don't know if this is the year they go back to the Super Bowl and win it. But I think this is the year it's the get right season. It's the get back on track season. It's we're going to go to the playoffs. You might be in the NFC title game type of season. I think this NFC leaves a lot to be desired. I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts of the Eagles. Eagles are losing so many guys to free agency, but Jalen Hurts is fantastic, and you're going to go as far as your quarterback takes you. And I think Jalen Hurts definitely keeps that team competitive. You look at the 49ers. I don't know what they're doing at quarterback. It might be Brock Purdy. It might be Trey Lance. I'm a big believer in Trey Lance. So if he does get that opportunity, I think he'll make the most of it. But regardless, that team is built very well. They do have to pay Nick Bosa still, though. They will have to pay Brandon Ayuk. So we'll see how that goes. But, I do like what the 49ers have done. They did go out and get Steve Wilkes to replace, Ryan. So, I think that you look at teams like that, and then potentially even that South division, which is kind of up in the air. The Falcons, there's a rumor that they could be going after Lamar Jackson. If they do that, then, that team has a lot of talent. You look at the Panthers. I think the Panthers have maybe the best coaching staff this season.
Staff, yeah.
So, the Panthers I've already been talking about. Like, I think the Rams trading for Brian Burns made sense, but I don't think it made sense for the Panthers to trade Brian Burns. And it did make sense to trade Christian McCaffrey because they knew what they had, in Foreman. So, I think the thing is the Panthers, they have a good offensive line. They're a quarterback away, I think, from being really good. They could be in the mix. Tampa, I didn't think was very good even with Brady, so I don't know if they'll necessarily be in the mix. And then the Saints, if they get Derek Carr, they're certainly there. And then, of course, the North, you look at the Lions, who are actually my favorite to win the NFC this year. I just like what they've done, giving Jared Goff weapons, giving Jared Goff protection. The defense will be much better than it was this year. And even towards the end of the year, the defense was playing well. That's a team that could have won a Super Bowl last year if they made the playoffs. It really is that simple. They got hot at the right time. They started off really poorly, and then they just became one of the hottest teams in football. They're well coached and wouldn't rule them out. The Vikings are an interesting one, although I'm not entirely sold on Kirk Cousins, as sad as that is for me to say. I do like him. Mm-hmm. But, Payo, I think it just goes to show you, though, the NFC is wide open. And when you look at the best quarterbacks in this division, it's Jalen Hurts and Matthew Stafford and arguably maybe even Jared Goff. I mean, that is where we're at. It's not Josh Allen and Burrow and Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. Yeah. Like, there's an opportunity here for the Rams to get back and get back quickly. And I kind of have penciled 2024 as the year. 2023 feels like getting back to things, like getting back to normalcy. Mm-hmm. Being competitive, being in every game, but actually winning more than half of those games. And then, being in the playoffs and having a decent playoff run. That is how I see the Rams in 2023, but no one should count them out. They did just win the Super Bowl not that long ago. And this is a team that still has a lot of talent. Now, could they trade that talent away? I mean, who knows? We've heard all sorts of things, but
and we're gonna
at the end of the day, at the end of the day, they have a lot of talent, and anybody that's counting them out or trying to make it seem like this is the beginning of the end for them just doesn't know what they're talking about.
Totally. And a couple of weeks ago, I did a video on kind of the 3 goals for the Rams offseason, and this will kind of bring us into this. And so my 3 goals is, I summarize it like this: the Rams offseason needs to focus primarily on health, getting healthy, getting our players, back from injury, because some of them are significant injuries. Number 2, wealth, making sure that, we're, addressing, cap casualties. If there's, restructuring of contract that needs to happen, let's talk some money. And then the third, I think, is stealth, and making those moves that no one talks about outside of the Rams fandom. And because the reality is, when most NFL fans and the majority of mainstream media, they seem to only care about the Rams when they're winning, right? And that's just sort of the reality of it. I think that a lot of pundits they don't view the Rams as a big talking point anymore, where like last offseason, you'd see those guys like Colin Cowherd and those big kind of media personalities talk about the Rams a lot. But this year, not as much. And I just think that if we can make those under the radar signings, under the radars, maybe it's a trade, and get us back to a place where for sure, competitive in every game, but looking to win every game, looking to have those record breaking stats from Cooper Cup or from Stafford, or from if Cam Akers could get back to form, you'd love to see that, right? And being able to take that next leap forward and have the Super Bowl as the expectation. But with that in mind, what are some of the offseason moves that you would like to see the Rams make this year?
Yeah, it's tough because we just have no idea where they're going to be in as far as position, to make those moves and the cap space. But I mean, the ones that I'd like to see them go after a safety. I don't think they'll be able to spend top dollar, but maybe if like John Johnson becomes a cap casualty, they look at bringing him back. I would really like to see a guy like Julian Love or Jesse Bates, but they're going to be really expensive. Jamel Dean would be worth the money. Like if they were willing to shell out money to one free agent, Jamel Dean of the Buccaneers would be worth it. This guy fits their soft shell, coverage style defense. Would be a great number 2 next to Ramsey, would allow Jacoby Durant to play freely in the slot. And I feel like with him, he's one of the best tackling corners in the NFL, and how important is tackling, and especially in this scheme. So, I think he would make a lot of sense. Then you look at the offensive side of the ball. I know everyone talks about running backs. I don't know. I mean, the guy who was probably the biggest critic of Cam Akers is pretty much telling you right now, what I saw out of Cam Akers last year, I'm willing to kind of ride or die with, especially with Kyron Williams. You get another running back in the draft, great. But you don't need a Bijan Robinson. You don't need, Josh Jacobs. You don't need Tony Pollard. You're not going to get Tony Pollard, but you don't need any of those guys. So, I think the big thing here is looking at, strengthening the offensive line. What can you do? And so, I think you found out through this kind of trial run of a season. I mean, you have a lot of these guys that can play. I mean, I think Chandler Brewer showed you he can play at a decent enough level to consider him a decent depth piece, right? Alaric Jackson, before he had the blood clots, showed you he can be a starting caliber tackle in this league. And then you look at Coleman Shelton. I thought he played pretty well, right? And then Ty Nsekhe, do you bring him back? Do you bring back, some of the other guys? So, I think that there's definitely something there. And then you look in free agency and potentially via trade, the trade market I mentioned on my channel, on the Believe in Rams podcast, going after Garrett Bowles. He's coming off of a leg break. So, I know some people would be worried about that, but before that, he really didn't get hurt. And that's more of kind of a freak injury. Age 30, 31 is not as old as people think.
Yeah.
Like the Rams signed Andrew Whitworth at age 34, 35. So, I'm not necessarily worried about his age. I think when you look at him, he's the guy that could solidify the left side if they're not kind of sold on anybody there. Joseph Noteboom, you can't really count on. He's always hurt. I like the guy, I really do, but he's always hurt, and he's coming off a injury where 30 to 40% of NFL players never play again coming off it. The same that, Cam Akers suffered. So
yeah,
it's a different position, and it's harder because you're going to have to use that lateral agility, so to speak. You're going to have to shuffle. You're going to have to, use your legs in pass sets. And I mean, that Achilles, is that going to hold up? And so we've seen like Jason Peters came back from it. But Jason Peters is just kind of Jason Peters. He's his own thing. That's not a common injury to come back from. And so I do have some questions about that. I also don't think he was playing relatively great before he got hurt. So I have also questions about that. But I think you look at the offensive line. Isaiah Wynn is an interesting one. My friend Michael King brought up Daniel Brunskill, going out and getting him from the 49ers. I think that there are some interesting options out there. But another thing that would be intriguing, I don't know how much he's going to cost, but if the Rams are interested in bringing in like a tight end, that could kind of, help add another dynamic to the offense. Mike Gesicki is really interesting. I don't know how much he's going to cost because he really wasn't utilized much in Miami. I do think he's one of those guys that's going to get paid as something that he can be, right? I think teams are going to pay him according to what they believe he's going to be able to do and not what he did in Miami. And so I think for that reason, he might not be an option. But if you could get him decently cheap on a 1-year prove it deal, put him with Bryson Hopkins and Tyler Higbee, you got a nice little tandem there. And I think Gesicki in this offense could be really good. But, those are just some names, not going too crazy about it. And I'm not saying that Gesicki is a need, but it would add another dynamic to an offense that struggled last year. And let's be honest here, if the Rams are still top 10 in offensive, stats last year, whatever, and they don't win the Super Bowl or whatever, they're still a good enough offense at that point where they're probably not assessing different options. They're probably just going to go into next year and be like, all right, this is what we can do or whatnot. But when you are in the bottom of the league in offense, when you're an offensive minded team, that does draw some things out. And that could mean that maybe even Cam Akers and what he did at the end of last season isn't enough. That could mean that they want something new and they need to just kind of blow it up. We don't know. But I mean, I think there's a good chance they're going to keep it together, and there's a chance that they can make a big splash move for the offense to kind of add some juice, whether that be through the offensive line via trade or going out and getting a Gesicki or, drafting a guy like Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee in the second round. That would probably have Rams fans irked, but the guy's a hell of a talent. I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly wouldn't.
No, totally. And I think you touched on, I think, what almost every Rams fan is thinking with this offseason of, when you have the 29th ranked offense and you struggle, just put points on the board all season long. Every move you make this offseason, you just want it to address the offensive line, address, is it getting more playmakers in there? Is it, getting, more pieces that you can have different offensive schemes that teams haven't really seen out of the Rams before. So whatever the Rams do this off season, I'm hoping that we get back to a place where we can be a top 10, top 5, top tier offense. And I think just as a fan, watching the game, it's really frustrating when you get to the red zone and you're like, 10 yards away from scoring a touchdown. And you're like, I don't know if they're going to get it in. Like, I don't know, right? Like it should be more often than not that you have confidence that your team is going to put the ball in the end zone. But this year, that was not the case.
It's a weird thing with Sean McVay because as great of an offensive mind he is, his play calling is susceptible to kind of not, I don't know, keeping up with how great of a play designer he is. Mm-hmm. It's actually fascinating because he can get into a rhythm where, okay, he's calling the right plays and whatnot. But this is a guy that has struggled in the red zone. And this was the biggest thing coming out of Washington that Washington fans brought up. Like, hey, we were 26th in red zone offense. You know what I mean? Like, and that's something that I'm hoping he gets better at. He's still the youngest coach in the NFL. Yep. But this is his 7th year in the league or 6th year going in. I think at some point or another, if he's going to stick with the play calling, you would hope that he gets more, not creative necessarily, because I feel like, he is creative and just having creativity doesn't necessarily lead to results in the NFL. I think that's a very important thing to recognize, because I think a lot of people are just like, oh, well, if you just have all these different motions and, have this guy pick this guy and have this guy like a rub route, no. Like, creativity does not necessarily breed success. Yeah. It's not a guarantee. You have to be creative with a plan. You can't be creative out of, the blue. And so I think with a lot of the time, Sean McVay using a lot of those jet motions, I think teams have become so aware that they're going to use jet motion almost every play, it seems like, that they're just no longer, like, it doesn't have any effect, right? It doesn't before when it was first used for the Rams, like when we're really talking about it recently, back in 2015, the Rams used it to get Tavon Austin on the jet sweep type of motion, and then you would hit them with either him or Gurley. And what that does is, if the linebacker leans this way for a split second or leans this way, you now have an advantage, right? When they don't, though, and they know it's coming, there's no advantage, and you're just taking too long to snap a play. So I think the red zone, it's going to be a matter of being consistent, not getting too cute. We see it a lot. I mean, that one play they ran with Baker Mayfield, that keeper on, I think, second down or third down or whatever, quarterback keeper, was one of the worst plays I've ever seen in the Sean McVay era. I've gone on record saying I hated that play more than anything.
That was a
I don't.
bomb, yeah.
Yeah, I don't like those quarterback keepers at all. I think that was probably Liam Cohen's, college experience with Kentucky, making him a top 4 SEC offense. I think that was him kind of rubbing off on it. But I hope they kind of stay away from stuff like that this year. Don't get too cute. And I hope they take advantage of the trends in the NFL, because the thing about Sean McVay is that, with this whole revamping of the defense post Wade Phillips, bringing in Brandon Staley, having more of a cover 3 soft shell bend don't break scheme, and keeping guys, more guys in the secondary and less guys up front, creating more of a lighter box, it allowed teams to run against that, and that teams were copying the Rams all over the place, because what happens in the Super Bowl, you watch the Super Bowl, everyone sees it, and they see the two teams that did it the best that year. And so it's a copycat league, and they'll pick different things out and whatnot. So I think the Rams, especially Raheem Morris's defense, were the victim of being copied. And, I think that posed an opportunity that Sean McVay didn't see. I think at the end of the day, when you have these lighter boxes in the NFL, you're playing more, heavy in the secondary. It allows you to run the ball better. And it's why I think we saw an uptick this past year in running back production. Because, you're not having as hefty of, a box up front. You're not having as heavy of a set. You don't have 5, 6, 7 guys, right up there, close and personal. I will say this right now. Like, you look at Steven Jackson would have killed for the season that happened this year, because Steven Jackson never got a chance to really run against anything that wasn't an 8 or 9 in the box type of, situation.
Every his career. Yeah.
So, Jackson could have had 2,000 yards last year in the NFL, and I would not have been surprised. I mean,
that's a good take. That's a good take. Yeah.
It was a very good year to run the ball. It's why Josh Jacobs, who wasn't even brought back on a 5th-year option, went from not hitting 1,000 yards to being the leading rusher. And it's why we just saw an increase. Those rookie running backs, don't get me wrong, I'm sure they're very good, and I do like them. Like, I like Algier, right? Dameon Pierce looked very good. But if you don't think it had something to do with more of a lighter front, I don't know what to tell you.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, I do see our we're almost at an hour here, and this has been awesome. It's been great.
Absolutely
love hearing your thoughts on the Rams, and I'm excited for your draft coverage. I still say
appreciate it
that Ram centric draft coverage. It's something that you and Alexis do so well, and I'm excited for it. And please, let me know if there's anything I can ever do for you. Appreciate, want to support Rams content growing on this platform. And for anyone watching or listening, where can they find you?
Yeah, you could follow me over on Twitter at JK Bogan. You could follow me on Instagram at JK Bogan. You could also find me on TikTok at JK Bogan. I post content all over there. YouTube is Jake Ellen Bogan. There's also there's a tag now. I think there's like an at. It's like at JK Bogan 15 because someone stole JK Bogan from me. Yeah, really annoying because it's like, yeah, I have JK Bogan on everything. Even like we're talking sponsorships, like code JK Bogan. But some dude who made a YouTube channel 8 years ago has JK Bogan on YouTube, and it's just one of those continuity errors that's like annoying.
Definitely.
It's something I'll always know, so I'll be able to tell people. But yeah, I mean, you could also Google me. We talked about that earlier. Just like type in Jake Allen Bogan if you want. Downtown Rams stuff is there. I've been posting my scouting reports for different draft prospects on DTR. So check it all out.
Awesome. Well, and I'll have the links to your socials in the description of this video. But
I appreciate it.
Yeah, stick around for a little bit. But thanks everyone for watching. And as always, go Rams, horns up, and peace out. Let's go Rams.